it's Denise Lamar. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, hello my love bugs. Hope everyone is having a beautiful and blessed day. So let's get into it. Let's have a conversation about the process of buying this house. So I think I'm gonna probably break it up into a part 1, part 2, part 3, because obviously I need to sit down and just like kind of walk y'all through how the process was, which is what I'm doing now. And then I also have a lot of behind the scenes footage of me actually going to view the house with my realtor. We viewed so many different houses and I got so much content. Let's start from the beginning. So I started prepping to have a house back when I first moved here in 2018. I knew that that was one of the goals that I wanted to kind of like work towards. But before I could even get to that, I had to do other different steps. So you all know I went to college. I got my bachelor's degree in visual art and I got my master's in marketing. Those came with student loans. And I knew that that was going to have a deep impact on me trying to buy a house. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to tackle that portion, but I knew that I needed to tackle the smaller debt that I had, and I also knew that I needed to tackle actually saving up for a down payment. So before I even moved here, me and my aunt created a financial goals plan. So we went through all of my debt. We went through all of my medical bills. We went through all of my personal bills. We went through all of my credit card bills. So I just kind of like tackled bill by bill. So 1 month I would focus on this bill, or 2 to 3 months I would focus on this bill. And then once my actual business started taking off in that January of 2019, which at the time I didn't know was the Creative Beach Studios, but I had started doing social media marketing, social media management, content creation. I was doing so much in that space, and it was consistent pay. It was like working a full-time job, except I was my own boss. I set my own hours. So I was really able to kind of like decide how much I wanted to put towards any of my bills at any time. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know this. Some months you do better than others. Some months you may make this much. Some months you may not really make a whole lot. Then other months you may be like all the way up here. Then once I got to a comfortable spot, I would talk to Tina, because me and Tina are friends. So we would like either go hang out, and I'd ask her questions about just like, you know, her experience. So I'm like, let's have an official meeting so I can know what's what I need and all of that. So we met up, she went over all of the paperwork, you know, the things that I was gonna need, how much I would probably need down, the types of loans that they have. Obviously the best loan that you want to go with is a conventional. They also have FHA loans. But keep in mind that this is prior to the pandemic. So we're meeting, we're talking, we're discussing everything back and forth, kind of come up with a game plan of when we wanted to start. So I was like, okay, well, you know, it's 2020. I think I'm ready. You know, I think we can do this. And so we started looking at houses. And, you know, I saw my first house. I had already gotten a pre-approval, but a pre-approval is not the same as an approval. And so I talked to a couple of banks, and even another realtor that both Tina and I know from back home told me that you're an entrepreneur, so you need at least 2 years minimum of tax returns from your business. 2019 was really my first year of like really like having consistent pay. So I was like, I only got 2019, that's all I got. And it just wasn't gonna work. And you wanna be like as close to 100% ready as possible, and I wasn't. So I was like, okay, well, we had to take a step back. But God knew, because literally me and Tina had started seeing houses late February going to early March. We got shut down going into the second week of March, between the 9th and the 12th or something like that. I'm so glad that I didn't do it, because as soon as the pandemic hit, woo, child. Both of my contracts that I had at the time, they were big contracts, like my month to month, my bread and butter contracts. They both ended. Everything shut down, like influencer work, entrepreneurial work, like everything was just kind of like at a standstill, because us as a country and the world didn't know what was going on. Saving for a house kind of like just went out the window. Thinking about getting a house didn't even become a reality again until I'd say fall of 2020. where I started working again. So I was able to save up so much. And so I was like, okay, well maybe 2021 might be it. My goal was to make the same amount that I made in 2019 for 2020. That was my goal. So I'm like, okay, if December gets here and you're at your goal, then you are going to go for the house January of 2021. And that's what I did. I paid off a couple more things. My credit score increased between March of 2020 to January of 2021. I reached out to Tina. I was like, hey, I think I'm ready. And what we did was, before we even started looking, I went through the approval process. I'm like, I don't even want to do the whole pre-approval thing. I want to know how much money I can spend right now. We went through the financial company that she typically works with. He's an amazing guy. I was like, Connor, how much can I spend? Can I even buy a house right now? So we did that first before I even got into looking at homes. So once he was like, hey, you are approved, it still was a pre-approval. So he was able to like put eyes on my actual financials. Okay, if you were to go under contract tomorrow, you'd still be able to close and you wouldn't have any issues with underwriting. So that's what I would recommend for anybody, especially if you're going by yourself and you're an entrepreneur, you don't have W-2s, or you don't have like, you know, you and your husband doing it. Make sure that you know that you can afford your house and that you can actually buy it. So I got my approval letter from the bank, and we went house hunting. First, we started off with new construction, and then I was like, well, let's look at some resales. And so we started looking at resales, and resales is what I was like, you know what, I really want to resale, because I'm a designer, I'm an artist. Like I can see the most raggedy house ever, or the most basic house ever, because this house was basic. I'd say we saw maybe 20 houses before I found one where I was just like, it's like almost just new, right? And we go into it. It was a townhome, but it looked like an actual house. And you go up this like brick walkway. So you have a full walkway, right? Go up the walkway, go inside. And as soon as I walked into that house, I was just like, Tina, because I'm very picky. And we had seen quite a few houses, and we were even thinking about going back to new builds. I was like, no, just keep sending them, and so I can, you know, make some decisions. So I saw some raggedy houses, I saw some beautiful houses, I saw some like, why are they even selling these houses? Like, oh child, it was so crazy, because like some of the houses on the market had lines, and so I was like, we're the first person at this house. So we get to the house, and I started crying because I just fell in love with it. And I was just like, I really feel like this is it. And this is bittersweet for me, because even though I'm grateful for my house, I'm so grateful for my house, there's always like kind of almost like the one that got away. And it's probably also because that was my very first house that I put an offer on. It's my first offer. You're not gonna get a do-over when you do things for the first time. I'm just like geeked, and you know, me and my family prayed over it, and we did all of the things. I'm just like, this is it. We went to her office, we did the offer. If I could do that over, I would have offered at least $15K above asking price. And then another thing with this market that I also have to contend with are contingencies. So contingencies are basically kind of like different stipulations that protect both you as the buyer and the seller. However, we're in a seller's market. So the terms and conditions and things that worked prior to it becoming a seller's market didn't work in this market. So there were people waiving all contingencies, financing contingencies, inspection contingencies. Like, so the house is like on the market for 360 grand. There were people saying, I will offer you 400K. Now, what the appraisal does, it determines, is the house worth 400K or is the house actually worth 360K? Now, typically in a regular market, let's say it comes in the middle, the house is worth 380K. The seller will, you know, foot the difference, basically. Not in this market. In this market, you gotta split that difference on top of everything else you have to pay for. So there's so many different things that you kind of have to consider there. So you're like, okay, well, if you're putting 10 grand more, you better make sure you have that 10 extra grand in case that appraisal doesn't come back in your favor. Since it's a seller's market, it's more competitive. So I had to compete like crazy. And when I first started, even when I put the offer on the first house, it was not competitive like it was supposed to be. And I don't think I anticipated it being that way. I thought it was gonna be like a piece of cake, to be honest with you. So I had to kind of like readjust my expectations when it came to the actual like getting under contract, like actually putting forth a competitive offer. You know, I had family members being like, well, you know, the seller, you know, they'll cover. No, they ain't. Or the seller knows you. My best friend just bought a house and she knew the person that she was buying from. Those are exceptions. The rule is you ain't about to get nothing in this market from the seller as a buyer. You just not. And I don't know if it's like that now, but I know when I was dealing with it, child, it was rough. The more we kept putting in offers, the more I kind of like was playing with different contingencies. What would work? What was I most comfortable with? What was I not comfortable with? There are some contingencies that I just was not about to waive. And so after I got out of the resale market and I got into the new construction market, I was like, yeah, I'm good on that. I don't want to compete. I'm done with competing. I don't compete. Actually, I was the only girl for a long time. I don't compete for nothing. I'm not used to having to do all of that. So I'm like, no, absolutely not. I think at the time I wasn't really comfortable doing that. I just wanted to like offer what it was worth. You know, my realtor, you know, she gave me some options or whatever, but I went with what I thought was best at the time. So we did it and we were like, okay, she has 24 hours to respond to our offer. Man, the 21st hour got here and we didn't hear back from that lady. That lady had already sold that house. She had already put somebody else under contract. And what Tina was telling me is that she probably had already offered that house to somebody else. But I'm like, if that was the case, then why even put it on the market? Why even do any sort of open house if you already have somebody that's, you know, a shoe-in for this house? Like, why would you do that? I was heartbroken. It was like getting your heart broke for the first time. It was so sad. I'm getting a little teary-eyed now because it was just so like the emotions were just like, ugh, it was so sad. And it took me about a month to get over it. That was like February. We found the house fast. But I was like, you know what? I do not want to sign that lease again. I do not want to deal with my stupid landlords again. I took a couple of days and then we started back. But my heart wasn't in it. At that point, I'm like, everything compared to it is not, it ain't it. At that point, we had put in 3 to 4 offers. Some of them I knew that I probably wasn't gonna get it. I found this house and I was just like, ooh, I think I love this one too. And so it was like, I didn't think I was gonna feel that way about another house. So we put an offer on it, but the offer didn't come through because couple offered like cash and they were offering like 25 grand more than the asking price. So I was like, okay, all right. But the house next door, like across the street, was on the market as well. So I was like, all right, well, maybe, you know, yeah, we could put an offer on here too. Cool. Maybe a couple of days later, Tina calls me and she's like, guess what? The offer fell through. They went with another house they like initially, and so the house is yours. We still put the offer in, so we were like the backup offer. So if you find a house and you still want it, there's always contracts falling through all of the time. So still put your offer in because you could always be a backup. So that's what we did. We went under contracts and this is like the beginning of March. I put down my deposit. Actually, I was under contract for 2 houses. I did 2 offers. One went under contract and then I withdrew my offer. They were so mad, but I knew that wasn't my house. The second one came through and I was like, yeah, withdraw that one and let's get this one. So the closing date was like within 2 weeks. Dealing with the bank, it was like they were saying, okay, well, we need to check this out. We need to check that out. And I'm like, Connor, I thought we already went over my financials back in January. So like, what's changing? There's an issue with the amount of student loans that I owed. And because I also had to owe HOAs, like the amount that I was off by like getting approved for the house was so stupid. It was literally like maybe off by like $100 of more money that I needed to afford the house, or less debt that I needed to afford the house. I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to pay off? He was like, well, first we need you to submit your repayment plan for your student loans. And this is before they etched out all their repayment stuff or whatever for houses. And so I'm like, okay, so I did that. Came back, it still was tight. So I'm like, okay, well, he's like, well, can you pay off your car? And I'm like, yeah, but I already am giving y'all 3% down. So I'm like, okay, well, actually, no, it's 5% down. So I'm already paying 5% down. So I gotta pay like $8,000 towards my car. Okay, a couple of days pass by. So I get my inspection done, I pay for that. You know, me and Tina go there. We're like trying to, you know, walk through everything. So, you know, things are moving. And then the guy comes back, he's like, you know, actually, it's still, the numbers ain't numbering. And I'm like, okay, well, what else do I need to do? If you could do 10% down, pay your car off, and then also switch from a conventional loan to FHA loan. I'm like, what? And at that point, I had most of what I needed, but I was short by like stacks. So I started asking my family members, and one family member in particular was supposed to help, and he said that he was going to help like before I even started the whole housing process. He was like, whatever you need, I got you. Just find the house you want. We're gonna get you in the house you want. Child, true to form, he did not come through. And so they was like, you can either do all of these things or get a co-signer. So I wasn't able to get the co-signer. And I'm like, this is my first house. I'm not supposed to be spending this much money and these much resources to get into it. If I move into this house and I get all of the money that I need, I'm going to be house poor. I'm not going to be able to do nothing when I move in there, like nothing. And so I called Tina and I was like, we gotta withdraw the offer. And I'm sure she kind of felt that it was coming. And what it did show me is how many people loved me. The people who were in my corner. There were so many people like, I can give you this, I can give you this, I can give you this, I can give you this. So what ended up happening was I withdrew it. I lost, how much money? I got most of my deposit back, but I lost like $3,500. And I lost hope. I lost hope because I was this close. Like closing day was like a week away and I had to withdraw the contract. If you've ever have gone through the housing process, it is very particular and very meticulous and very nitpicky. You can be $5 and they will still be like, nope, you can't afford it. And I'm like, what? It doesn't make sense to me, but it was what it was. So at that point, I was like, but this condo and this dog and this vacation sounding real good right about now. Maybe this just isn't meant to be. Maybe this just isn't something that I want to do. Maybe it's just too much trouble than what it's worth. Tina asked me one thing. She was like, you want to re-sign your lease? No, I don't want to re-sign my lease. No, I don't. And so I cried and sulked for about days. We started back looking at new construction houses. We were like, okay, well, resales ain't work. Let's look at some new construction. Long story short, found this house. It wasn't built, but it was in a city that I didn't necessarily want to be in for personal reasons. Not because there was anything wrong with the city, but for personal reasons. And it was a little bit further than what I had initially planned on it being. And I was just defeated, to be honest. Like I was just kind of like a sourpuss at that point to the housing process because I just felt like everything was stacked against me, even though I had all of my ducks in a row. Like it was almost like there's nothing I can do to improve my credit score because I've done all of the things. There's, you know, I'm still making money, but I can't come up with 20 stacks over, you know what I'm saying? Like it was just like so many outrageous things that I needed for that old house where I was just like, I'm like, okay, we can look for some new stuff, but I don't know. And I remember when I first saw the home with Tina, I cried. We stood in the middle of the street in this neighborhood for about an hour and a half, hours of me crying and going back and forth because there was another property that I was like, well, maybe I can do that property because it's cheaper. Da, da, da. And at that point, I just did not know what way was up, what way was down. I just did not know what was going on. It wasn't until my family came to visit me. I forgot why they came to visit me, but they came to visit me. My grandma, my aunts, my like 2 of my uncles, I think, and my cousins. And I'm like, you guys want to see the, you know, the property? And again, this is like dirt, right? So we come back to the property and I'm like, I'm feeling okay about it. And I'm going through the neighborhood and I come up here, we look at the model unit. And so we all go out there and we're just looking and I'm like, you know, it's starting to grow on me. And my mom was there with me when I went under contract. And thankfully, I went under contract when I did because literally the next day or two, the prices shot up like 20 to 30 grand. And now these houses are like way more than what I'm paying for them. Yeah, so I ended up under contracts in April of 2021. I didn't close until October 2021. That's gonna be another video because this video is already really long. That is my home buying story. So I'm sure you guys have, you know, even more questions about now that I've like talked about it. And you know, my experience is not gonna be everyone else's experience, but my experience was unique in the fact that I am single. I am an entrepreneur and I have a lot of student loans. And so there were a lot of concessions that I had to make and a lot of very hard decisions that I had to make by myself that were not easy and decisions that I've never ever had to even dream about making before. So now that I went the new construction route, that's a whole nother video. So again, this is going to be different videos. This is not gonna be one continuous video because this video will be an hour long. So I'm gonna break it up in segments. I'm also going to have videos of just the process, like me vlogging. So there's whole vlogging videos of me going to go visit these houses. So this is like the first of maybe 4 videos of the house buying process, maybe 5, I don't know, but this is part 1. Nothing in my life has ever been like traditional, like ever. But with high risk comes high reward. I've gone through some things where they're not like in the traditional sense or the conventional sense or the normal sense or whatever that means. But it ends up being magnificent. So I just feel like this is the life that God has laid out for me. I just need a little bit of, you know, like some normalcy. I don't want no more strength. I'm strong enough. But yeah, that's it, y'all. I'm tired. And I did say for my last video that whoever commented under that video, I have a little special surprise and I am doing a giveaway. I am giving away 3 home decor items to 1 special subscriber. So make sure you guys are liking and commenting because I'm going to make my final decision this week. So make sure you guys are liking, you're commenting, you're engaging, so I can give y'all something cute for y'all house. So that's gonna be one of many because I did a really big home decor giveaway last year. This year I'm gonna give one on my YouTube channel. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.